Attachment is a process by which strong emotional bonds form between mothers and their offspring, and it appears in most species of mammals. It's a mechanism that's necessary to manage the balance between surviving and being safe, but at the same time being able to explore the world and learn about it. And there are good reasons why evolution has shaped this kind of strong attachment between mothers and offspring. Separation from or loss of a mother is the greatest threat to the survival of baby animals in general, but baby primates in particular. And it's especially important for primates because they remain dependent on their mothers for so long. And prehistorically, this was undoubtedly true for human beings as well. Unrelated adults, especially males, pose a grave threat to children. One study of the cause of death in young kids among the Ache people of Paraguay over the last 100 years found that 55% of the children who died before the age of 5 died as the result of the actions of some adults. So strong informed attachments to the mother and staying close were absolutely essential for survival. Human infants pass through a series of stages as they form attachment to their mothers. For the first 2 months of life, babies are pretty non-selectively sociable. In other words, they are attracted to faces, they look at faces, they smile when they see faces, but they don't seem to distinguish very clearly between different people. Around 2 months of age, though, they start to show a very clear preference for people that are familiar to them. And about 6 months of age, they start showing fear of strangers and separation anxiety. Not coincidentally, this is the time of life when kids are starting to crawl around and maybe have the ability to get away from their mother. So the anxiety is a tool that can keep them close and keep them safe. And fear of strangers serves the same purpose. Interestingly, fear of strangers is especially strong for strange men with beards. That may tell us something about, in our ancestral environment, what kinds of people one had to be most afraid of. It also helps to explain a lot of the uncomfortable Santa Claus pictures that you see with little kids around Christmas time. By 2 years of age, though, children have formed clear, powerful attachments to individuals, especially to the mother in most cases. Now, by 3 years, they can tolerate the mother being away and form temporary partnerships with other people, but they still have a powerful, special attachment to one of their parents, and it's almost always the mother. Now, if something happens during the first year and a half of life, kids seem to have the ability to form secure attachments to new caregivers if that's called for. The pioneers in developing the theories of how attachment works were John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth. Ainsworth, in particular, was instrumental in developing the procedure that's still used today to assess attachment style in infants. This procedure is known as the strange situation. It involves having the mother in a room with the baby, and a stranger comes and goes, the mother leaves and comes back, and there's a series of coming and going that causes the child to get anxious because the mother's away. And the researchers who are assessing attachment style in these situations watch very carefully to see how the child reacts when the mother leaves and how the child reacts when the mother returns. There's a link to seeing a video clip of the strange situation on this slide. You can also find a link to the same video on the web page for this module. And I strongly suggest that you take a break right now. Take a look at that video before you continue looking at the rest of these slides. Because once you can picture the strange situation in your mind, then everything else will be much easier to understand. Now, for obvious reasons, the strange situation only works well with very young children. You can't appropriately measure the attachment style of a 35-year-old person by using the strange situation. But there are other ways of doing this. There's something called the adult attachment interview, which is used to assess attachment style in adults. This is a semi-structured interview in which individuals describe their parents as caregivers, describe how the parents reacted to distress, describe their current relationship with their parents, and so on. There are also paper and pencil measures of this. One of the more popular ones is something called the Experiences in Close Relationships Inventory. In this questionnaire, people respond to statements by agreeing or disagreeing about how much they apply to them. And they have questions like, I prefer not to show a partner how I feel deep down. Or, I worry about being abandoned. Or, I am very comfortable being close to romantic partners. And through this questionnaire, you can measure the attachment style of adults. And so attachment styles in children can be assessed by how they behave in the strange situation. And here are the categories of attachment styles that researchers have identified. 60 to 70% of American kids score as securely attached to their mother. In the strange situation, they're comfortable kind of playing and exploring the room while the mother's there, and they come back every once in a while to check in with the mother, make sure everything's okay. When the mother leaves, the kid gets very upset and disturbed. But when the mother returns, the kid is very pleased to see her and is easily calmed down and comforted by the mother. And after this has happened, they stay close to mom. They maintain a lot of direct contact with her. About 20% of American kids can be described as avoidant, and it's sometimes called anxious avoidant attachment style. These kids don't seem to be terribly attached to the mother, and in some situations, they're actually friendlier to the stranger in the strange situation. And if the mother leaves, they don't seem to care. And when the mom comes back, they may actively avoid her. And these are the kids that are most likely to show anger during the strange situation. Ambivalently attached kids, sometimes called anxious resistant kids, are about 10% of American children. They don't explore very much. They're very clingy. They stick close to their mother. When the mother leaves, they become intensely upset. They go insane. But when the mother comes back, they resist angrily being reunion, and the mother can't calm them down very well. The final style is called disorganized or disoriented, and fortunately it's very rare. You usually only see it in very dysfunctional families. So the kids in this situation give all kinds of contradictory, unpredictable responses. So attachment styles are a fairly consistent thing. The child behaves the same way every time you put them in the situation. We don't know too much about how this plays out cross-culturally. Almost all of the research on attachment has been conducted in the United States and in England. And it works pretty well for kids in those cultures. We just don't know enough about other places to say what's going on. There are a number of different variables that predict the kind of attachment style that a child develops. And all of the things on the list here indicate the things that will make the child more likely to be securely attached as opposed to insecurely attached. All of those other styles, aside from secure attachment, are collectively known as insecure attachment styles. But some of the things that predict a secure attachment style is a lot of physical contact between the mother and the child, a mother that's encouraging and stimulating for the child, a mother who is good at calming and soothing the child when the child gets upset, a mother who more frequently directs positive than negative feelings toward the child. In other words, how well does the mother's parenting style match the needs of the infant? And it's really about the quality of the communication between the mother and the infant. And the better that is, the more likely the child is to become securely attached. There are somewhat different labels for attachment styles in adults. Securely attached adults are ones who very easily form secure, confident, caring relationships with other people. Normally, when we're talking about attachment styles in adults, we're talking about their attachment to romantic partners. So as I talk about this, think about attachment style in the context of a romantic partner. So securely attached adults have comfortable, healthy relationships with their partners. An attachment style known as anxious preoccupied causes some problems. The person with this attachment style likes intimacy. They crave being involved with someone else, but they're constantly worried about rejection. So even if they're in a good relationship, there's a lot of anxiety and they want constant reassurances that their partner's not going to leave them. And they just don't ever feel confident that this other person is going to stay attached to them. Dismissive avoidant people, on the other hand, are very kind of independent and they don't seem to crave intimacy with other people at all. They don't really bond and sort of open themselves up to other people. Fearful avoidant people want intimacy. They would love to be in a relationship, but they lack trust. They just don't want to put themselves out there on a limb. They feel vulnerable, and so consequently, they tend not to get involved in intimate romantic relationships. So what are the consequences of attachment style for kids? Well, it's pretty clear that having a secure attachment style gives a kid a lot of advantages. They don't experience as many negative emotions when they're young. They get along better with their parents in almost every way. They adapt well to school. They have good relationships with their peers. And as adults, they have longer, happier marriages and closer friendships. So these are things that you would certainly want for your own children. Insecurely attached kids, on the other hand, tend to be much more likely to have exploitative, unstable adult relationships. If you're insecurely, avoidantly attached, you date more, but you have more sex without actually falling in love. And if you have two insecurely attached people married to each other, there are a lot of fireworks. It's very dramatic, but not in a good way. So given how advantageous secure attachment style seems to be, the question would be, why don't we all have it? Why are some people insecurely attached? Well, attachment style is something that apparently develops early in life. You're not sort of programmed to have a certain style, and you can adapt your attachment style to the situation you face. So insecurely attached kids may develop this attachment style as a way of extricating investment and care from parents who are either unable or unwilling to give it on their own the way that you might expect.